Good afternoon, all. Hope you're doing well. In this lecture, we want to talk about how you can visualize your data with the use of different charts and spark lines. Also, you will learn different settings of the charts and how you can use trend lines to predict your data trend. Before learning how to draw a chart, you should learn two concepts: data point and data series. Data point is any cell that we want to visualize its value, and data series is a group of related data in different cells. For example, if we use a column chart, each column represents a data point. However, the columns with the same color show data series. In order to create a new chart, you should select the data range that you want to visualize, then go to the Insert tab and click the desired chart. For example, here we created a column chart for showing the number of students in different majors in year 2012. For this purpose, we selected the major column from A5 to A11 and the number of students in 2012 from E5 to E11 and clicked on the column chart from the Insert tab. There are different chart types in Excel. Let me give you a quick overview of the usage of each chart type. The first one is column chart, which is used to compare values in vertical columns where the height represents the value and categories display along the horizontal axis. Bar chart displays value in horizontal bars where the length represents the value and categories display along the vertical axis. Line chart displays category data on the horizontal axis and the value data on the vertical axis. It is used to show continuous data to depict trends over time by a line for each set of data. Area chart is similar to the line chart. However, the area chart displays colors between the lines to help illustrate the magnitude of the changes. Pie chart shows proportion of individual data points to the total or whole of all the data points. Donut chart is similar to the pie chart and it shows a part-to-whole relationship, but it can have multiple data series. Scatter chart shows a relationship between two numerical values using their x and y coordinates for scientific, statistical, and engineering data. And bubble chart. Bubble chart is like a scatter chart, but it can accept a third series to specify the size of the bubbles. Stock chart is used to show fluctuations in different data, especially stock prices. Tree map chart provides a hierarchical view to compare different levels of categorization. Radar chart can compare the aggregate value of several data series, such as performance of employees and companies in various categories. Surface chart is used when you want to find optimum combinations between two sets of data in a 3D view. And box and whisker charts show you the distribution of a dataset. Funnel chart is similar to a bar chart, but the bars are sorted and centered to create a funnel shape. Waterfall chart is used to plot the cumulative results of values as a visual running total. Histogram chart is a visual representation of the distribution of the numerical data. Map chart is used when you want to visualize related data to countries, states, cities, and so on. And finally, a combo chart can combine two chart types to plot different data types that are related in some ways. Watch the video in the next slide to know more about different chart types.
Probably the most common kind of chart you will see in Excel is the so-called clustered column chart that we see below the data, right here on the left side of the screen here. There are other kinds of column charts as well. The chart to the right of the data is called a line chart. It's generally agreed that if you're trying to show a trend or the lack of a trend, line charts are best. We tend to read that from left to right. Pie chart, one that's seen to the right of the line chart, is fairly common for showing data when you're trying to show each piece as a component of the entire region or perhaps year, as it is in this case, half year. We have different reasons to use different charts. And in Excel, it's easy to change these as well, too. The next sheet over, called column chart, shows us some variations on column charts. And sometimes it's just a question of the formatting that makes one chart a little bit better than the other. Many people will use column charts to indicate volume. Perhaps it's better doing that than a line chart. Sometimes it's just a question of what's easiest to read. One thing for sure, you don't want to be spending a lot of time explaining how to read a chart, particularly if you're making a presentation or if you've sent out some printed material. The less explanation necessary, the better. Column charts are probably the most common for most Excel users. Here are some variations on that type. The next sheet over shows a line chart based on data from January 2011 to June 2013. And again, it illustrates the almost native ability of a line chart to suggest a trend. And we can certainly see here a generally upward trend with a lot of perhaps erratic behavior along the way, but we do get the big picture of what's going on here, and perhaps better than we would by way of a column chart. The next tab over, pie chart, shows us two different kinds of pie charts. The one on top there is showing the breakout based on just domestic sales, and each wedge there represents a different month, and we can see the legend below that explaining it. And so those pieces comprise the whole. Below that, a different use of a pie chart, but the same general concept. Here we're looking at these total numbers over in column H, and we're seeing rather quickly that domestic is about a third of our total sales. And that brings out the data nicely and gives us a good visual image to accompany the data. A bar chart, you could say, is nothing other than a column chart rotated 90 degrees. And in some organizations, these might be a bit more common than column charts, but the same general idea. If you envision perhaps a goal or the numbers moving rightward, sometimes people use this. They think it's maybe got a little more action to it than a column chart, but perhaps those observations are subjective. But it's another variation on displaying the data. An area chart, again, it has its uses. This perhaps suggests volume, in this case, volume growing over time. And we can see that. It's similar to a line chart, and yet it's a different feel, perhaps. There are specialized charts. We won't mention all of them, but here's a scatter chart. And here we're trying to show possibly the correlation between the age of runners who have finished a race and the time. And we're showing both of those there along with a line. These are called scatter charts, sometimes XY charts. A new chart in Excel 2013 is called Combo. Now, actually, these were available in prior versions, but you had to construct them pretty much. It's now considered a separate category. And this is ideal when we're comparing different kinds of values that otherwise wouldn't be seen very well on the same chart. In this particular chart, we're seeing miles driven and also miles per gallon. We read the columns off the left side and the line off the right side. And so at different times, you will see different kinds of chart types. One thing for sure, when you create a chart, if you're not sure if it's the best chart, you can easily make changes here. Excel gives us 53 basic charts, but there are hundreds of variations for each of them.
Hope you became familiar with different chart types to some extent. Now we want to break down the charts and talk about the usage of each chart in detail. Let's start by column chart. As I said, this type of chart is one of the most useful charts in Excel that can compare values across categories. The vertical axis displays values and the horizontal axis displays categories. As you can see in these two examples, in the first chart we just visualized different jobs in 2020, but in the second chart we compared jobs availability in 2010 and 2020. Watch the demo in the next slide to see how you can draw a column chart.
Let's look at a simple example. Here we have a table of data containing monthly sales and expenses. Let's use a column chart to graph this information. To get started, highlight the data that you would like to use for the column chart. In this example, we have selected the range A1 to C7. Next, select the Insert tab in the toolbar at the top of the screen. Click on the Column Chart button in the Charts group and then select a chart from the drop-down menu. If you hover over each choice in the drop-down menu, it will show you a preview of your data in the highlighted chart format. In this example, we have selected the first chart in the 2D column section called Clustered Column.
There are two other types of column chart called stacked and 100% stacked. They are similar to the normal column chart, but instead of showing related data to each category using an individual column, they show related data of each category as one column. For example, as you can see here, instead of using a column chart to show the fictional and non-fictional books on two columns for each person, stack chart used just one column to show these two groups of books for each person. Stack chart is used when we have multiple data series and we want to emphasize the total, but when we want to emphasize the contributions to the whole, especially if the total is the same for each category, we use 100% stack chart. Bar chart is similar to column chart, but it is rotated 90 degrees. Since bar charts plot data using horizontal bars, they are very easy to read because the human eye can easily compare bars. Also, because of the horizontal layout, bar charts have room to accommodate longer category names. Like the column chart, bar chart has stacked and 100% stacked versions. Line charts are a good way to show change or trends over time. A line chart plots each data series as a separate line. In contrast to column or bar charts, line charts can handle more categories and more data points without becoming too cluttered. As you can see here, we use line chart to visualize rent and income in different ages. Area chart is similar to the line chart and can be used to plot change over time and draw attention to the total value across a trend. By showing the sum of the plotted values, an area chart also shows the relationship of parts to a whole. Pie chart can be used to show each data point as a proportion to the whole data series, where all pieces together represent 100%. Pie charts work best to display data with a small number of categories. For example, survey questions in yes or no format, data split by gender, and so on. If you want to attract users' attention to the important part of your data in your pie chart, you can move that section slightly out of the pie, which is called an exploded pie chart. In order to do this, simply select the desired part of the pie and use drag and drop. When you want to visualize a dataset with a significant difference between its values, it's better to use pie of pie chart instead of a normal pie chart. This type of pie chart provides a way to add additional categories to a pie chart without making a pie chart too complex to read. When creating a pie of pie chart, Excel moves the smallest slices of the pie chart to another pie chart. For example, as you can see here, Excel moved the small green part of the pie chart that includes reptiles and small mammals into another pie chart. Please consider that you shouldn't use pie of pie chart when there are many categories or when categories don't total 100%. Donut charts are similar to pie charts. They show a part-to-whole relationship and all pieces together represent 100%. But the only difference between donut chart and the pie chart is that with the use of donut chart, we can use more than one data series. But with the use of pie chart, we can only show one series of data. In fact, donut chart is a more complete version of pie chart. As you can see in this example, with the use of donut chart, we could visualize two data series from 2018 and 2019. But with the use of pie chart, we could only visualize one of them, and we needed to create two different pie charts to visualize both series. Scatter chart is typically used for showing and comparing numerical values. This chart presents data with the use of dot points and has two value axes, a horizontal and a vertical. It combines X and Y values into single data points and shows them in irregular intervals or clusters. Here we use a scatter chart to visualize advertisement costs and items that we sold in different months. Bubble chart is like a scatter chart, but it can accept a third series to specify the size of the bubbles. As you can see here, we have three products and we have three factors for each one, including product quantity, price, and market share. The x-axis shows the quantity of each product, the y-axis shows the price, and the size of each bubble shows the market share. As the name implies, stock charts can show fluctuations in a stock price. However, this chart can also show fluctuations in the other data like currency, daily rainfall, or annual temperatures. This chart indicates high and low in a given time interval. As it can be seen in this sample stock chart, on top of the line is a bar which indicates open and close values. Dark bars indicate close price is less than open price. Light bars indicate a close price greater than open price. In order to use different types of this chart, you need to have 3 to 6 columns of data. Watch the demo in the next 2 slides to learn how you can use stock charts in practice.
So I've got a made up stock here for ABC XYZ company, and depending on what you want to show, I've got two different sets of data here. One showing the open price, the high and the low price throughout the day, and the closing price. The second set of data just shows the highest and the lowest prices and the closing price. So depending on how much data you have or what you want to show on your chart, you can choose one or the other. Let's start with the simplest one here. So this is a formatted table, which means I can select any cell in this table, go to the Insert tab, Waterfall or Stock Chart, and then Stock Chart. There's quite a few options here. You'll notice that the first one says high, low, and close. That's what we're going to use. The next one, as a comparison, is the open, high, low, and close. So that's where we need to use the other set of data for that to represent that information. You can also plot volume prices if you have that information available as well. And these last two options here contain chart types if that's what you need. So for this one, let's just choose the first type there. And because I've got a year's worth of data, you can see that it's really cluttered here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just choose Select Data at the top, reduce the amount of data down to just 1 week to start off with, just so we can get the chart the way we want it. And after that's done, we can then expand the range of data if we need to. So click OK there, and this is your initial chart. I'm just going to put it on one screen so that the chart is next to your data. Now these things here are called candlesticks. So it shows the range of data, the price range, that the stock has been at during the day. At the bottom of the stick is the lowest price it reached, top of the stick is the highest price it reached, and halfway along, which we can't see at the moment, is the closing stock price. So if I right click on any one of these candlesticks and choose Format the High Low lines, this will display a panel in the right hand side, and it's taking me straight to the bit I need, which is how I want to format these candlestick lines. At the moment it just says automatic. Automatic generally means black. The color we can see is down here. If you want to do a slightly different effect, you could choose a gradient line, and that's where it fades from dark to light. And if you look closely, you can actually see the closing price now as a marker, a tiny little marker on each of those candlesticks. You can also choose a solid line and choose any color you like for your candlestick. If we change the high-low options here and change it to, say, series close, you have the options here to change either the line or the marker characteristics. I'm going to focus on the marker, and if I start off with the marker options, and where it says built in, you can change the type from a little horizontal dash to a square or a diamond or a triangle or any of these symbols you see down here. Let's maybe choose a square, and let's maybe just supersize it a little bit so we can see it clearly on each candlestick. Just while we're here, I'm also going to set the fill color. So automatic again is just the default color. We can change that to anything we like. And let's turn the border off. And that's how our candlesticks are now looking. So the block is your closing price for the stock. And obviously the candlestick, the line behind each one, shows you the range that the price was throughout the day. If you want to show a trend line for your closing price over 5 days, or if you want to your highest or lowest prices, you can add a line to connect all the dots. So just take any one of these closing price markers, double click it. It takes you into the sidebar here. It starts off on the series options, but if you come across here and go to the fill and line, under the line settings, it currently says no line, but you can choose a solid line, or a gradient line, or an automatic line and choose your color and all your other characteristics down here. So you might decide, for example, to have a dotted line, okay, or a dashed line, or a solid line, or a thick line, and you can change all those things down here. Let's switch across to the other set of data. So here we have an extra column of data. We've got the opening stock price, the highest and lowest that it was throughout the day, and the closing stock price. So again, I'm going to select my starting range here, just a week's worth of data to start with, go to the Insert tab, go to the Stock Price chart, and choose the second option. Now because the data is set up differently, it gives us a bit more information on the chart itself. Let me just move this, so I'll just resize it so we can see it. So what you have is a similar system with your candlesticks showing the price range throughout the day, but the block in the middle, rather than just showing a square or a diamond as in the closing price, it shows you the opening and closing price. Now where it's got a white marker here, that means the price rose throughout the day, so it closed higher than it opened. The black markers indicate that the price lowered throughout the day, so it opened higher than it closed.
I'm going to show you how to make a temperature chart. Basically what we're doing is we're charting out temperatures, the high, low, and average temperature values. And in this case, these are New York City temperatures in the month of November. So we can do this various ways. We can do a line charts or a combination chart, but another nifty way to do it is using the stock chart. So basically the chart that you would maybe use for tracking a stock ticker symbol over time periods, we can actually use that type of chart to track temperatures. Now what we would do is we'd have a high temperature, a low temperature, and an average temperature. So this would almost equate to the high price of the stock, the low price of the stock, and the closing price of the stock. So it should be in this order: high, low, and then average. And then we can chart out the trend for the temperature in this case. So let me show you how that's done. And also I'll show you how we can put this specific type of formatting for degrees. These are measured in Fahrenheit right now, and I'll show you how to add that custom number formatting. So let's go ahead and copy this formula. I believe I already copied this formula into another sheet here. And so we have our values here. So we have our values here for the temperature. And all we need to do is just click anywhere within the range, as long as there's no broken or empty cells here. It will select the appropriate range for our table, for our chart. So after that's done, I'm just going to select anywhere in the table here. Go to Insert. And you can see here, there's not really a chart here that says Stock Ticker Chart. And there's a combo chart. There is this line chart. You think it might be in there, but it's not. But so what you need to do is we just go into the recommended charts, and it'll bring up the insert chart dialog box. And we can just go into the all charts tab, and we'll look up the stock chart. And so the one that we want is the high, low, close, because that's going to look for the three series of data that we want: the high, the low, and this close. We'll just substitute average for that. So I'll go ahead and select that, click OK, and you'll see that my chart is kind of built out already. So we can see we have most of the chart already kind of laid out for us. And if I just want to take the easy approach, I can just go into the chart styles and take a look at see some of the chart styles. You can see that if I select this one, a lot of it's already done with the formatting where we have our marker. You need these circles are already kind of like in a nice size, and we have the alignment of our category down here done well.
Surface chart is useful when you want to find optimum combinations between two sets of data. In surface chart, colors and patterns indicate areas that are in the same range of values. The surface chart is best used when X and Y axis are numerical ranges. Radar chart can be used to plot the performance of employees, athletes, products, and companies in various categories. Also, this chart can be used for performance evaluations and satisfaction surveys. Radar chart has one axis per category, which all use the same scale. The axis of a radar chart radiates out from the center of the chart, and data points are plotted on each axis using a common scale. This chart shows changes in values relative to a center point. Therefore, the result is a geometric shape that shows at a glance performance across all categories. The tree map chart provides a hierarchical view of your data, and it's an easy way to compare different levels of categorization. This chart displays categories by color and proximity and can easily show lots of data which would be difficult with other chart types. The tree map charts are good for comparing proportions within the hierarchy. Here we use tree map chart to visualize the sale amount of 2010, 2011, and 2012 for different months. As you can see, this chart shows each year with a different color, and the size of each box represents the sale of each month. The greater the value, the greater the box. The sunburst chart is similar to the tree map chart, and it is ideal for displaying hierarchical data. Each level of the hierarchy is represented by one ring or circle, with the innermost circle as the top of the hierarchy. A sunburst chart without any hierarchical data looks similar to a donut chart. However, a sunburst chart with multiple levels of categories shows how the outer ring relate to the inner rings. The sunburst chart is most effective at showing how one ring is broken into its contributing pieces. As you can see in this example, our fictional company has 3 strategic product lines, including widgets, controllers, and connectors. Each product line has 3 markets counting industrial, specialized, and consumer. Also, each market is divided into the different industries, and the size of each element of the chart shows its sale amount. A histogram chart is a visual representation of the distribution of numerical data. It's a special kind of columns chart where columns represent bins that group together values at specific intervals. The height of each bar shows the proportion of values in that bin. In fact, histogram can automatically group data based on different intervals. You can change the interval in the settings of the chart. As an example, we have a histogram that shows different age ranges of the students and the number of students in each age range. As you can see, there are 5 students who are 15 years old. Watch the example in the next slide to know more about this type of chart.
Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to create a histogram from your sports data. So this is just my example data here. And what I'm going to do first is create a histogram for the heights of AFL players. So what I'm going to do is highlight the data that I want to put into the histogram. So that would be all of the heights for the AFL players that I've done. And then I'm going to go Insert. And I'm going to choose this graph right in the middle here that says Insert Statistics Chart. And then the first option there, which is a histogram. Now you see what it does is it automatically separates the data into intervals, but some of these intervals are a little bit difficult to follow. Like for example here, it's chosen intervals that are about 10 wide, but not quite. So we can fix that up. If you right hand click on those numbers down the bottom and go to Format Axes, we can change the bin width. So the bin width is how big the interval is for each of the columns. So for example, I could change that to 10 and hit enter, but then I'd only have 2. But if I change it to 5 and hit enter, then I can see a bit more about what's going on in the distribution.
Bikes and Whisker chart shows you the distribution of a data set. They show the median, quartiles, range, and outliers. The median divides the bikes into the inner quartile range. To learn this chart in practice, watch the examples in the next 2 slides.
So we have our data set over here, and then this is the resulting box and whisker chart that we're after, right? But before we start creating our chart, what I want to go to is just this breakdown over here so that you can have a proper understanding of what a box and whisker chart is. Okay, so pretty much this chart, it shows you the distribution of a data set, right? So it shows you the median, it shows you the different quartiles over here. So you can see here there's the first, second, and third quartile of your data, right? And then you have your range, and then you have your outliers as well. Okay, so the X over here, it represents the mean, right? And then the median, okay? So it divides the box into the interquartile range. So the box itself, it contains the 50%, it's representation, right? It's 50% of your data set because it's pretty much the second quartile and the third quartile. And then the lines extending, right? In this diagram over here, you can see here, these are the whiskers, which is why you have the box and whisker chart. So the whiskers show the outlier range, right? Which is your first quartile and your fourth quartile, okay? And then you also have your highest and lowest data points, right? So over here, you have your minimum data point over here, and then you have your maximum data point over here. Of course, our diagram over here is a horizontal orientation, right? But when you go to the chart, you pretty much just flip it to the vertical, right, orientation. So you can see over here, both of them, all of the boxes and whiskers over here are in vertical orientation. Okay, so let's get started right now. So what we want to do is, let me just delete this first so that we can recreate our chart. Okay, so the first step is to highlight your table. Okay, so let's just highlight that right now. And then let's go to Insert. And then we select Recommended Charts. And over here, we just go straight to All Charts. And let's look for our Box and Whisker chart. Okay, this is the one. Let's double check. Yep, looking good. Okay, so let's go OK. And now we have our Box and Whisker chart over here. So let me just enlarge that a bit. Okay, we don't need the chart title. Let's delete that. Okay, once we have this, we can just go straight to Chart Tools, Design tab, and then you can just go over the chart styles quickly and then just pick a different style that you prefer. So let me just pick one of them over here. Let me just delete this again. Okay, and now we have our Box and Whisker chart, right? And you can quickly point out to your management on where the outliers lie.
In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a box plot in Microsoft Excel. So you can see I have my data set here. I have 1,470 rows of data about employees at a fictional company. And what I'm interested in doing is comparing the distribution of monthly income among the various categories of job roles that I have in my company. So I have my data formatted as a table, and the easy way to see that is to see that when I have a cell selected inside my data set here, the Table Tools Design tab opens up. So because I have it formatted as a table, I can simply move my cursor up until I get this little black down arrow, click once, which selects my data without selecting the column header, and then by holding down the Control key, I can come over to monthly income, do the same thing, and now I have all the data that I'm interested in selected. Now to create my box plot, I come up to the Insert tab, and under the Charts group, under the Insert Statistic Chart option, I click the drop down, select Box and Whisker, and just like that, I have a box plot. Now if I want to make some changes to the appearances of this, I can simply right click on one of my boxes here, select Format Data Series, and now I can make decisions about what I want to show. So if I want to show the mean line between all my average values rather than the median values, I can do that. If I want to not show the mean at all, I can deselect Show Mean Markers. I can determine whether or not I want to include the median in the quartile calculations or not. And I can decide whether I want to show the inner points or whether I want to show the outliers. And then of course I can increase or decrease the gap width to make these boxes wider or shorter. So I can make them real wide if I want, or I can make them real narrow.
Waterfall charts are used to plot the cumulative results of values as a visual running total. The initial and final values sit directly on the horizontal axis, and intermediate values are plotted as floating running columns. Positive values extend upward, and negative values extend downward. This chart is useful for showing how an initial value is affected by subsequent positive and negative changes. As you can see in this example, we have the net profit of different months. In January and February, the net profit is negative, as we had $5,000 loss in January and $3,000 loss in February. So for January and February, the chart shows the columns below zero, but since we had profit from March, the chart columns go up. And from November and December, the columns go down again. Watch the demo of this example in the next slide.
So for this example today, we've got net profit for each month here. It's probably going to have time across the bottom, so our time intervals are going to be the months. You can see we've got the months down in this column and the net profit for each month in this column. We've also got the total at the bottom for the entire year, but we don't need to include that when we're selecting the data for this chart. To create the waterfall chart, firstly go to the Insert tab at the top and then find the icon for it here. It's this one in the Charts section. Click on it and click the top one to insert it. To insert the data, you need to be selected on the graph and then go to the Design tab and then click on the Select Data button here. Make sure your cursor is in this box here and then go ahead and select all of your data. We're going to be including the titles, but we're not going to be including this total here as we don't need it. It should look something like this. If you click OK, you can see we've got the basic graph and it's automatically made it look like this. And you can see that it's looking like it should. So to explain the graph then, the orange colours, as you can see by this legend here, show decreases. So we started at 0 and we've gone down by 5,000. We've then got the total here, which is the grey icon. And then we've gone down by another 3,000 to a total of minus 8,000 here, which is shown on the vertical axis. And then we get profits, so we creep up with the blue colours, and then losses up here as well, which go back down to the final total of 38,000, which is summed up there, but is also shown on the graph by reading across from the left to right. The first thing I'm going to do to the graph is add the title, so we can call it something like net profit for the year. Another change you might want to make is the width of each of these boxes. To do that, you need to select the graph first and then click one of the boxes. You should get these little blue circles in each corner. Then go to the Format Data Series screen here on the right, click the furthest right icon, which is the bar icon, and then you can change the gap width, which will affect the size of the boxes. As well as the box width, another common thing you will want to change is the colours. Now this can be quite tricky. If you go to these change colours here, you can choose the theme for the entire graph, but there might not be the colour you want here. If you look online, you might find that the best way to do this is to go to the Page Layout tab, but that's not the case, as that will change the theme for the entire spreadsheet and it will start changing the colours that we've already got in the table here. So to change these individual colours, so the increase and the decrease, click on the legend and just select one of them. So we've selected decrease, and then you can go to the Format Legend entry screen here. You should see that. Go to the solid fill tick and choose a different colour. If we choose red and then click off, you can see it's changed all of the decreases to red. And then if we were to do the same, click on the legend and then click on just increase, go to the fill and change it to green. So that'll change whatever is in this table. So if we were to go ahead and put minus 5,000 in for May, you can see it's made the graph look a lot different, but it's got the red minus in for May. There are things that we can add to the graph. So if we go to the Design tab at the top and then go to Add Chart Element, we can add axis titles. So this might be something you want to do. We might not need it in every single case. As you can see at the bottom there, we don't need to say that's each month because it's fairly obvious. We can also move where the chart title is from here as well. We can have no title, or we can move it within the graph. We can also add data labels to show the exact number, so we don't have to read across the graph, but in this case it looks a bit messy and you might not need it in your case either. Grid lines might be helpful. It will make the graph much easier to read, and it might help in certain cases when there's a lot of information on the graph. We can also change the position of the legend here as well, so it's currently defaulted to the top, but we can have it right, left or bottom. A few other things you can do. If you go back to the Design tab, you can choose some of the presets here. This will change the overall visual look of the graph. So it might add things like grid lines automatically. It's up to you. If you want to choose one of those, you can. There's also some quick layouts to choose as well, and this will stay away from the visual side of things, but will look at more of the format of the data.
A funnel chart is similar to a bar chart, but the bars are sorted and centered to create a funnel shape. This chart can be used to show narrowing down process. For example, here we use funnel chart to narrow down the employees based on their computer and statistics knowledge. The funnel chart displays total number of employees, employees who are familiar with computer, employees who are familiar with computer and have a statistics knowledge, and employees who are familiar with SPSS. Map chart can be used to compare values and show categories across geographical regions. Use it when you want to visualize related data to countries, states, cities, or suburbs. This chart uses a gradient spectrum of two colors to show data on a map. For example, here we use the map chart to visualize sale amount in different countries. In Australia, we had the least amount of sale, which is red, and in Russia, we had the greatest amount of sale, which is green. Watch the example in the next slide.
Here's a list of airports across the world with the number of passengers who passed through each airport in 2015. And here's the same data plotted as a map chart. The higher the number in column C, the darker the colour for that country. So, how do you create a map chart? Let me show you. Here's a list showing the 2016 population of 15 states in the USA. I'll start by selecting the names of the states and the numbers. Then select Insert, click on Maps, and click on the filled map icon. I'll position and resize the chart. I can choose a different style. There's 4 styles up here. I'm going to go for the third one. Click on the title and change that to Population 2016. I'll delete the legend, I don't need that, so click on the legend over on the right and just press the delete key. To change the colour scheme, right click anywhere on the map, select Format Data Series, and I'll change the colour in the area at the bottom of the Format Data Series dialog, and I'll change it to go from a light brown for the minimum to a dark brown for the maximum. Finally, I'll add some labels for the states. Now, if I change one of the numbers, for example, if I change Arizona to 40 million, then it changes the color for Arizona.
The last type of chart that I want to discuss is combo chart. This chart can be used to show 2 different but related data types. It's a hybrid of 2 more chart types, for example, a column chart plus a line chart. In this example, we have 2 columns of data. The first one shows the temperature for each month based on Fahrenheit, and the second one shows average rainfall based on inch. Watch the example in the next slide.
We have to select the range first. And when we're doing this, we're doing a multiple or non-adjacent ranges. I hold down the control key. I have that over here. I want to do a combination chart. I go to Insert. I click on Combo Chart. And I would just choose this one here. I don't like that. That's the one that works because I want 2 data columns. I have that in here. I will go and I click inside here, go into the formula bar, type the information in. The chart is done.
After drawing a chart, when it seems to you that the selected chart type can present your data in a meaningful way, or the other chart types can provide a better presentation of your data, you can convert the existing chart type to another chart. In order to convert your chart to another chart type, you should go to the Design tab and click Change Chart Type button, and finally click the desired chart type. After a chart is inserted, you usually need to move it to a different location and adjust its size. You can make a chart larger by dragging it on the worksheet, but sometimes it's better to place your chart on a separate worksheet to have a better view of your data. You can move a chart to a new worksheet by right-clicking on the chart and select Move Chart, or by opening the Design tab and clicking on Move Chart button. This opens the Move Chart dialog box where you can move the chart to a new sheet, or you can place it in another sheet in the workbook. If you want to adjust the size of a chart, you can drag one of the sizing handles or specify the exact size by entering values in the shape, width, and height boxes that are in the Format tab. When you create a chart, by default, all the selected data are visualized in your chart. But if you want to hide a part of your data, you have 2 solutions. The first one is clicking Chart Filters and then select or deselect the series or categories as you can see in this picture. The second method is opening the Select Data Source dialog box by clicking Select Data in the Chart Design tab. This dialog box enables you to change the chart data range as well as add, edit, or remove data that is being used to create the chart. For some of the charts, such as column and bar charts, data can be switched to give a different perspective. For this purpose, click your chart, go to the Chart Design tab, then click Switch Row Column button. As you can see in this slide, we use Switch Row Column feature for this sample chart. The chart shown on the left uses the job titles as the data series and compares the different years on the horizontal axis. But the chart shown on the right uses the years as the data series and compares the different job titles on the horizontal axis. The next step after resizing your chart and selecting the data that you want to visualize with your chart is selecting chart elements. Chart elements are used to customize your chart based on your needs. In this slide, you can see a list of all the available elements that can be added to your chart. Let's have a quick look. Chart title describes the entire chart and reflects the purpose of the chart. Axis title is a label that describes the values of each axis. Data label shows the exact value or name of a data point. Data table is a grid that shows the data source of the chart. Grid lines are horizontal or vertical lines that display in the plot area. They are designed to help people identify the values plotted by the visual elements. Legend is a key that identifies the color assigned to each data series. Error bars show the standard error amount and percentage or a standard deviation for a data point. And finally, trend line is a line that shows data trend and helps forecast future data. There are two ways for adding chart elements. The first one is using the Design tab and using chart element buttons. And the other way is using a plus sign that appears to the right of your chart. In the next slides, I'll explain all the chart elements in detail. Chart title improves the readability of the chart. To add chart title, select chart title and type the desired text. Also, to change the title's position, click chart elements, click chart title, and select the desired option. Horizontal and vertical axis titles can help your users to understand what the chart data is about. To add the axis titles, click the Chart Elements button and check the Axis Titles box. If you want to display the title only for one axis, either horizontal or vertical, click the arrow next to the axis titles and clear one of the boxes. Finally, click the Axis Title box on the chart and type the title. For most chart types, the vertical and horizontal axes are added automatically. But if you want to show or hide chart axes, you can do it by clicking the Chart Elements button, then clicking the arrow next to the axis, and checking the boxes for the axis you want to show and unchecking those you want to hide. Excel automatically determines the minimum and the maximum scale values as well as the scale interval for the vertical axis based on the data included in the chart. But you can customize the vertical axis scale to better meet your needs. In order to modify the scale of the vertical axis, select the vertical axis in your chart and click the Chart Elements button. Then click the arrow next to Axis and click More Options to open the Format Axis pane. On the Format Axis pane under Axis Options, enter the corresponding numbers in the minimum or maximum to set the starting point or ending point for the vertical axis. Also, to change the scale interval, type your numbers in the major or minor unit boxes. Finally, to reverse the order of the values, put a tick in the Values in Reverse Order box. Depending on where you want to focus your user's attention, you can add labels to one data series, all the data series, or individual data points. In order to add data label, click the data series that needs label, then click the Chart Elements button and select the Data Labels option. To change what is displayed on the data labels in your chart, click the Chart Elements button, then Data Labels, and click More Options to open the Format Data Labels pane. Then go to the Label Options tab and select the options you want under Label Contains. Chart Legend can help you to understand the color code of the chart elements. If you don't need to see the legend, click the Chart Elements button and uncheck the legend box. Or if you want to move the chart legend to another position, use right, left, top, and bottom options. Grid lines can make your data easier to read. Excel determines the most appropriate grid lines type based on your chart automatically. For example, on a bar chart, major vertical grid lines will be added, but for a column chart, major horizontal grid lines will be added. To change the grid lines type, click the arrow next to grid lines and then choose the desired grid lines type from the list, or click More Options to open the Advanced Grid Lines options. If you want to move your chart to another sheet, you can display a table of the data that you used to draw your chart to make understanding your chart easier. To add a data table to your chart, click the Chart Elements button and check the data table. When you need to quickly change the style of your chart, click the Chart Styles button on the right of the chart and scroll down to see all the available styles. You can also choose a different style in the Chart Styles group on the Design tab. Each style is a combination of different chart elements and different colors. Excel provides a wide variety of color themes that can be applied to your chart. To change the color theme of your chart, click the Chart Styles button, switch to the Color tab, and select one of the available color themes. You can also use Chart Design tab to change the color theme or the overall style of the chart. If you don't want to use the predefined color themes to change the color of your chart, you can select the desired element of your chart and go to the Format tab and use different options to modify the color. With the use of Format tab, in addition to changing the color of different parts of the chart, you can change the font color of the chart title, values titles, and axis titles. The video in the next slide shows a summary of all the concepts related to charts and their settings. Please watch it.
Column charts are good all-around charts. They work with many different types of data. Whereas line charts are best for showing trends over time. Pie charts are unique because they let you see your data in proportion instead of on a graph. We also have the bar chart, which is basically just a column chart turned on its side. And finally, area charts, which are similar to line charts, except the areas under the lines are filled in. In this example, I have a table of sales figures for a bookstore. They're organized by genre and month, but it's hard to see any trends without looking at the numbers one by one. A chart would make things much easier. To create a chart, select your data, including any headers that you want to use. Then go to the Insert tab and look to the commands in the Charts group. For this data, I think I'll go with something in the column category. This one looks nice and simple. Now that is a lot clearer. I can see that romance has the strongest sales, with an all-time high in February. How do I know this column is from February? Well, below the chart, there's a type of key called a legend, and this tells us what each color represents. Right now the columns are grouped by genre, but you might prefer to see them grouped by month instead. There's an easy way to make this change. Just make sure the chart is selected, then click Switch Row Column on the Design tab. See how the chart has been rearranged? Basically, it's the same data, but the months and genres have switched places. You can always experiment with this to see which option is going to work best for your data. If you want to try a different chart altogether, click the Change Chart Type command on the far right of the tab. Then, pick something else from the dialog box. I think I'll go with a line chart this time. Line charts work well for data like this. For example, we can see right away that mystery novels are starting to catch up with romance. But sci-fi and fantasy sales have stayed consistently low. If you want, you can change the chart style to give your chart a different look and feel. As you can see, you have several different options to choose from. You can also change the chart layout itself. Just go to the Quick Layout command and make a selection from the menu. Not all of these options will work well for the data in your chart. Just keep going until you find something you like. Let's go with something a little bit like this. You can make further adjustments using the Add Chart Element command, or the Chart Elements shortcut. Just look for the button with the plus sign. Here, you can add or remove elements from your chart depending on your preferences. Or you can click the arrow to the right to access even more options. To edit one of your chart elements, like the chart title in this example, all you have to do is select the placeholder, then replace the text. Finally, whenever you insert a chart, it appears on the same sheet as the source data by default. If you want, you can move it to a different worksheet by following these steps. First, make sure your chart is selected, then click the Move Chart command. Next, select the sheet where you want the chart to go. In this example, we'll choose New Sheet. When you're ready, click OK. And now the chart appears in whatever location you chose. Charts are a great tool for presenting numerical data and also enhancing your worksheets in Excel. With so many options to choose from, you can achieve exactly the result you want.
When you're plotting data over time, you may need to plot a trend line that describes the data. A trend line is a straight or curved line that shows the general pattern or overall direction of the data. This analytical tool is most often used to show data movements over a period of time or correlation between two variables. In order to draw a trend line, right-click on the desired data points and click Add Trend Line. And in the Trend Line option pane, choose the desired line type. Finally, to project the data trends into the future or past, on the Trend Line option tab, under Forecast, type the desired values in the forward or backward boxes. Watch the video in the next slide to learn more about trend line.
To add a trend line to your chart, like either to the MP3 series or the books, go ahead and right-click on one of the series, like if we do it to the MP3s, right-click, and then go down to Add Trend Line, select it, opens up the task pane. Let me go ahead and scroll over so we can see it. And you get the different trend line options, exponential, linear, logarithmic, a little bit more curve to it. And then we can scroll down and choose other options, like as far as forecasting goes, once it gets to the point here, you want to forecast what it's going to be like past December into next year, like January and February. How about if we go ahead and type in 2 and hit enter? So that's what it looks like if we keep on this trend. We can even go backwards to see where we actually came from previously up to 2. And then as far as the formatting options, because I don't know about you, this green is a little bit hard to see. Go ahead and click on the paint bucket to fill in line. And then click on the color drop down arrow and let's do something red. Okay, that pops. And then let's do the width. Let's make it really thick. 2 points, pretty thick. You can do the transparency, click and drag. Ooh, fade in, fade out, fade in. Let's go ahead and go back down to 0 here. And then we can do the begin arrow types where it begins over on the left hand side. Click on it and say let's begin with the circle. So we've got the circle. You can see down below in the legend, begins with the circle. And then the end arrow type, click on it and say it's going to end with an arrow that looks like that. So you can see it's pointing that way or trending that way. And then go ahead and close out. If you want to delete it, make sure you got it selected. If I click off and I'm trying to select it, but I can't quite click on it, you can come up here, click on the Format tab, go to the current selection group, and right now what's selected is the plot area. Click on the drop down arrow and look for your trend line. There it is. Go ahead and select it, and it's got it selected, and then you can just hit the delete key to get rid of it. Let me go ahead and hit undo to bring it back. And then to format the selection, if you can't, double click on it to bring up the task pane, then go ahead and click on Format Selection, brings up the task pane for you. And then you can go ahead and Well, like the trend line name, if you don't like the default here, which is automatic, you can come down here and select custom and call it My Spiffy Trend and hit enter, and then down the legend you can see it's My Spiffy Trend.
The last topic that you will learn in this lecture is a sparkline. A sparkline is a small chart contained in a single cell that displays a visual illustration of the data. There are three types of sparklines, including line, column, and win-loss. In the figure shown on the slide, the line sparkline shows trends over time. For example, you can see each student's trend in test scores. The column sparkline compares test averages, and the win-loss sparkline depicts how many points a team won or lost each game. In order to insert a sparkline, select the cells where you want the sparklines to appear. On the Insert tab in the Sparklines group, click the desired sparkline. Then click in the Data Range box and select the cell range that you want to include in your chart. When inserting a sparkline, you can select the data before clicking the desired sparkline type, or you can select the data by entering the range in the Data Range box. The dialog box also enables you to select where the sparklines will be displayed. Watch a sparkline demo in the next slide.
To create a sparkline within a cell, first select the cell within which you want the sparkline to appear. Often this will be the cell at the end of a column or row of data values which you want to illustrate visually. Then click the desired type of sparkline to insert into the cell by clicking either the line, column, or win-loss button that appears within the Sparklines button group on the Insert tab within the ribbon. In the Create Sparklines dialog box that then appears, click into the Data Range field. Then click and drag over the cells within the worksheet whose values you wish to illustrate within the sparkline. Note that the cells you select that contain the values to show within the sparkline need to be adjacent to each other and in the order that you want them to be displayed within the sparkline. After selecting the cells, you should note that the Location Range field will display a reference to the initially selected cell within the worksheet. This is the cell that will contain the sparkline. You can change this value if needed. Once you have made your selections, click the OK button within the dialog box to insert a sparkline of the selected type into your worksheet. Another way to create sparklines within a worksheet is to first select the cells that contain the values that you want to illustrate within the sparkline. Then click either the line, column, or win-loss button within the Sparklines button group on the Insert tab within the ribbon. Within the Create Sparklines dialog box, you can then click into the Location Range field and then select the cell range within the worksheet where you want the sparklines of the initially selected data to appear. You can then click the OK button to insert multiple sparklines, called Sparkline Group, for the selected data into the chosen location. To delete sparklines, select a sparkline to delete. Then click the Design tab within the Sparkline Tools Contextual tab within the ribbon. Then click the drop-down button at the right of the Clear button within the Group button group. From the drop-down menu that appears, you can select either the Clear Selected Sparklines to delete the selected sparkline, or choose the Delete Selected Sparkline Group command to delete the selected sparkline group. Note that simply clicking the Clear button directly will only delete the selected sparkline, not the entire group.
After adding a sparkline, the Sparkline Design tab is displayed with different options to customize the sparkline. There are 5 groups on the tab. The first one is used to edit the location and data source of the sparkline. The second group is used to change the type of the sparkline. The third group can be used to display high points or markers within a sparkline. The fourth group is used to change the appearance of the sparkline, such as color or the marker color. And the last group can be used to modify the horizontal and vertical axis or clear the sparkline. That's it for today. If you have any question about this lecture, ask your questions on the course forum or come to your tutorial time and talk with your tutor. Have a great evening, guys. See you.